In today's show, we're going to talk about Power Apps mixed reality. So the idea is we're going to invade the metaverse. No. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the controls in Power Apps that let you view 3D models, place them in your room, do measuring in 3D, and just kind of understand the mechanics of what is possible, right? That'd be the main focus, and then how you guys can get started with these controls. Oh, and did I mention they're included with your regular licensing, so no premium licensing required. Should be fun. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. And today, it's all about Power Apps mixed reality. And so mixed reality, right, that's this whole like Pokemon Go thing, where you stick an object in the real world and you can kind of visualize it. So the idea is we're going to make a mobile app, and with that, we're going to have a 3D model of Chewy, of course, but you have a 3D model of a machine, a car, a vehicle, boxes, wherever you want. You can take those 3D objects and you can place them in the room or in the space so you can see what they would fit, right? You can take them, shape them, rotate them, all that stuff. So we'll look at that. We're also going to look at measuring in MR. So if we want to measure the size of my door, which you're going to see me do and do a really bad job of, we can see like how measuring would work, just measuring distances. So like we had a customer who wanted to measure fences that she was going to install. So you could do something like that. Or you can get a little more specific and you can you can measure like a cube. So we're going to measure a box because that gets us the area and the volume back from that as well. So we can really kind of mess around and see some of the different measuring. And then of course, if you don't have any 3D models, we'll talk about how you can use Microsoft Paint 3D. It's actually free as well. You just grab that out of the Microsoft Store to make your own 3D models. Or you can just place a cube. They have a way for you to do inputs and place that. So anyway, that's a lot of blah, blah, blah. What I want to do is switch over to my phone and walk you through how all these controls work. And then we'll go to Power Apps and build it. So let's switch over there. Okay, so here we are. I've got my Power Apps app on my phone here. We're going to log into the 3D app. You can see I have to allow camera access because it uses the camera control and then SharePoint as a data source. And so here in the app, this first screen I've built, that is a gallery that is showing some different SharePoint list items. And each one of those list items has an attachment, which is a JPEG, and then the 3D object that we want to view. So here we've chosen one of those. It now jumps me out. You can see this is my camera. This is my object, or my room. And now I can place the 3D object. So I've placed this little 3D dog that I drew a little smiley face on the front down in my office. And then it was too big. I set the sizes that it came in as, but they were too big. So I used my double fingers to pinch to shrink it down. And then I rotated it, and now it's standing on top of a box because, I don't know, I'm an idiot. You also get to see how messy my office is, so let's kind of move that off the box. But there you go. Now we have a 3D object in my office. You see the shadows, you see me pinching out to zoom out again, and then dragging back over. And I even just took a picture of what it was. There's me kind of ducking down a little to look at it. So there you go. That is placing a 3D object in there. As you can see, there's the default settings that came in 75 inches of width, height, and depth, and that's why it was so big. Now, this is a 2D image. I wanted you to see that if you only had 2D images, so this is a 2D picture of Chewy I took a long time ago, and so I passed it dimensions. It doesn't try to make my 2D image a 3D image. What it does, it gives me a cube or a shape that is the dimensions I gave it, and then just slapped my 2D JPEG on there. So that's why we're seeing, yes, this is what Chewy would look like on a box that size, but it's giving me the ability to check to see that he fit the dimensions that I had specified. So interesting ways for you to kind of go and do. Now you also see I have a little icon symbol there on the right. I clicked on that. That will let you open the 3D model in a 3D model viewer. So now I am not seeing it in MR. I'm just running it on my phone, but I'm using my finger to move and zoom in, zoom out. So if you had like a machine or something where they don't need to see it in the space, but they want to work with that 3D object to move it around, you could do that in that case. So there you go. That was a little fun with that. So this screen, this is a different control. This is for placing cubes. So you can do those in inches, feet, centimeters, or meters. You specify the height, the width, and the depth, and then say place a cube. It creates you a cube in that size. And so here in just a moment, my machine will lock in, and there you go. So now there is a 36 by 36 by 36 inch cube in my office. I can still pinch and zoom to make it bigger or smaller. Now I wish it would tell me the dimensions when I shrink it down. It doesn't, it just tells me what percentage of shrinking I did. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna kind of place it. That is a 36-inch wide door, right? Like I bought a 36-inch wide door, so I know it's 36 inches wide. And I kind of wanted to move it around and play with it and see that, look, this cube really is 36 inches wide. And I did a pretty good job getting it in front of my door, so good job me. I can then take a picture again as well. And the idea of these pictures is maybe you want to grab that and then save that picture. So showing, hey, what that cube would look like in my office, and then save it. So now we can measure in MR. And so measuring, this is the one that I had the hardest time wrapping my head around how it worked and doing a good job with. Like this one takes practice, I think. But so here I've got it just measuring distance. So I'm gonna let it zoom in, and now I'm gonna like measure the width of my door. Once it gets a 36-inch wide door, and you're gonna see I don't do a great job of measuring, but like I said, I've gotten better. Every time I do it, I get a little bit better at it. So it does take a little practice. So I only drew that line 2 foot 11.5 inches. Oh. And now I'm going to connect the dot. It like snaps to the end of the line so I can connect the dots. And now I'm going to measure up. I do a terrible job here. I'm only going to get to like 6'2" or something. If that was the case, I couldn't walk through the door. But you can see that once I let go of it, I did it too far or did it too short. And unfortunately, there's not a way to grab that line and pull it up higher. So what I'm going to do now is I went to the corner where I should have went, got another almost 3 foot line. And this time as we go down, I missed the snap at the top, but as I'm pulling down, like you can see now it's like 6'7", which is a little bit closer, but then I let go of it in the wrong place. I'm not very good at these measurements. I clicked on the little checkbox there so I could see the different measurements though. And as I just think about this, I think this works better, especially for people with bad fingers like me, I guess, in spaces where you're measuring big numbers. You're trying to get, like my friend in Australia who's trying to measure a fence, right? So she's measuring the number of feet. She's not trying to get down to the inches. She just wants to know how much material to buy. So she's like, oh, it's 7.5 feet. She's not like, oh, it's 7 feet, 2 inches, and she's measuring in meters, not in feet because she's, in Australia. You'll also see here, I'm currently trying to move the piece around. So you can move these lines around, but you can't stretch them out. So, and then of course I'm taking pictures. I accidentally hit the back button here, so it's offering to leave. So I'm gonna say stay. I'm gonna hit the submit button in the bottom right, and then that is going to drop me in here. There's the pictures I took. Down the bottom, I have a gallery of all the output, all the measurements that I just took. So I can kind of grab those, and it's just the length of each distance. All right, so that was distance. Distance has been hard for me. Area is pretty neat. And area, I'm going to turn on that little flag for box draw. So box draw is only going to make squares, right? Right angles. So you're going to see I'm going to try to measure this floor mat that should be under my chair instead of the middle of my floor. It still is a week later in the middle of my floor. So I measure out the distance. So it's about 4 foot. I got that right. But notice this time, it didn't give me any flexibility there. I only measured the 2 lines, and it automatically made it a right angle. And then it just made the cube for me. And so now the 2 sides are the same. I took a picture of it. I didn't really need to, but I did. And now we'll say submit. It saves my measurements. And over here at the bottom of the gallery, you see the links and you see the area. So it actually measured out the different, or did the calculation of area, right? Length times width. But there you go. It had the all the different pieces there. So area with box draw, that is something I could do without screwing up. Yay me. Volume, this is my best measuring set yet, right? Wait until you see this awesome job. We're going to try to measure that dumb box I had in the middle of the floor. All right, does everybody have a ring box in the middle of their floor? So look, I'm getting the thing to snap in again. And now that it's kind of finding its distance, then we'll hit the button there. We'll go out to the edge, and the box is right about there. Oh yeah, snap. Now, I'm trying to measure the other side, but it doesn't work very well until I move myself. I walked over to the other side. Now look at how easy the measurement was, 8 inches. And then it automatically is now doing this lifting thing. It gives me that kind of view to make it easy to find. Snap, and it's made a cube. Look at that. I did a good job. I didn't take a picture of this one. It's kind of disappointed me. But I submit that, and so down there in the measurements, we've got not only the height, the length, and the depth, we got the volume and the area this time. So we know the volume of the cube that I just made. And whether that volume is in inches or in centimeters or meters, right, you can change all of the metrics that's coming back in. I just, I used inches because I was measuring things in my office, and I'm an American, and I use inches. So this is freeform. Now freeform here, You can see I have to get over to the other side to do a good job of measuring the other side of the box again. The thing with freeform is I would have had more flexibility, but what did I do? I left on box draw because that was the only way I was able to do a good job of measuring. And so freeform really was the same as cube in this case. But if I had not done freeform, if I had done freeform but not turn on box draw, I could have had some more, could have measured some crazier stuff. I also had shadows turned off there as well. So I have a flow to save these back to our SharePoint document library. That's the normal save an image thing that we've done in 3 or 4 different videos. Nothing new there. So then this is just another view of that view in 3D model control, right? So that's one of the built-in models that they give you. So you can see I'm just pulling that in and kind of zooming in, zooming out, rotating it. So that's back to that idea. Maybe you have a machine or something that you want to be able to look at. And then this is the same one, same thing, but on the Chewy one, and we'd already done that. Keep in mind, I made that Chewy model by taking a 3D model of a dog and slapping my 2D image over it in 3D Paint because I'm crazy. Okay, that's a lot of fun. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about before we switch back over there is like you saw me, you know, the little white dots all over my floor, right? So that is my phone finding the floor. And remember that this whole 3D modeling thing is device dependent. And I can tell you that my previous iPhone was, I don't remember, one of the mid-level models. It didn't do as good of a job as my current one is one of the Pro models. It has the LiDAR in there, right, which is the actual radar, little laser beam radar. And so you're going to see that how well the 3D measurements and finding your spot in your room and all that work is really kind of dependent on what you bring to the table from a hardware perspective. And if you look down in the description below, I will link you off to the 2 different pages for the different hardware. All right, so like 12 minutes in, I feel we should probably start to talk about the controls now that you've got a good overview of everything. You might have noticed we changed back to my desktop. I changed shirts. We might have even changed days. You'll never know. But what I really want to dive into now is a little bit about how to get going with these, right? I could probably talk for the next 4 hours on that. You don't want that. You want to understand it. So here I am in the app that you just saw. We're not going to go through this whole app. This app, I probably have 40 hours working, tweaking, doing different things in this app. So there's a lot there. Remember, if you subscribe at training.powerapps911.com to the YouTube library, you can download this working app. But that's all right. You don't need the app. But there's a lot of cool stuff. Maybe you do need the app. I don't know. So to get started, let's go over here and let's make a new screen. And so in the new screen, we want to explore each one of these. And the first one I actually want to explore, like if you look over here, mixed reality, you've got view, view shape, measure, but there's actually another one hidden over here under media down at the bottom called view in 3D. And so this control lets you view a 3D object in your browser, right? And this is the only one that really works with the browser, but here I can kind of, move around, so I can manipulate one. This is a scenario where you have a 3D model that you don't need to see in mixed reality. You don't need to see it in your room. You just need to be able to, move in. And I can scroll in, right? So I'm scrolling my mouse, so I scroll in here and then really zoom so I can kind of see things. Now, the question with this is how do I get this one to work in my, how do I get my own models? And so the easiest way that I have found to get started with 3D models, if you haven't before, is if you jump over to the Microsoft Store and search for Paint 3D, Microsoft has a free program on here. It's just Paint, but in 3D. Who knew? Paint finally got better. It's a pretty robust program. I'm kind of impressed. So Paint 3D is what I want you to start with. And so if I open up my Paint 3D here, you can see that I have this cute little model of good old Chewy, right? I can kind of come in here, I can move it around, I can look at it, I can rotate him, I can work with it. So how did I make this of Chewy? I'm not a Paint 3D expert, so I'm not going to overdo this, but if we do a new here, I don't want to save that. What I have been doing is if you look, they have a 3D library. And so in the 3D library, you could just pull in, like maybe you're into dinosaurs, you just want to get a 3D dinosaur to start testing all this out. Grab you a 3D dinosaur, right? There's a whole bunch in here you could use. So there's a lot of different shapes there. Or what I've had more fun with is those aren't shapes, those are actual objects, is I go over to 3D shapes. And so in the 3D shapes, you have some doodles, some objects, and then this little thing right here is a dog. So if I select that and kind of pull my thing, I now have a 3D dog in here. And so that's the basis of the Chewy you saw earlier. But remember, Chewy had his face on, right? So it's kind of rotating. And notice right now it's disappearing. So the reason for that is the depth of the canvas. So if you click on this right here, the Z axis, hold that down. Now I can pull him out away from the canvas. And so now even when he's rotated, he doesn't go behind the canvas. So you don't lose any of him. Okay, so there's Chewy. Let's finish turning him to fully face us. All right. So you could either then now grab like a paintbrush. And so if we just grab black, right? Like this was one of the damn examples I did. I drew in here and I gave him a face. There you go. I would now have a 3D model that I could identify with. Control Z. The other one I did is stickers. And so I took this cartoon image of Chewy and I can grab the sticker and pull it out here. Nope. There you go, double click, pull it out. And so now it's trying to stick it on there. And so I kind of rotated it to be a little more forward facing and make it a little bit bigger. And, you know, if I fiddled long enough, I could get the perfect looking Chewy face, but that looks good enough. So then we will say, boom. And so now it's on there. Now if I click on the object and rotate it, look, we actually have Chewy's face on my object. So that's all the paint I'm going to teach you, but I want you to understand that paint can help you guys get started here. So now that I've got it, we're going to say menu. I'm going to say save. And we want to save it as a 3D model. And so we're going to save it in this folder and we'll call it Video Chewy. And then say save. And so then that is going to save it as a .glb file. So GLB files are, I don't know what that stands for. I want to say global, but I'm sure it's not that. But the idea is GLB files are what we need to do all the fun things we want to do. So let's get rid of that. And so as you look like right here with this one we pulled in earlier, if you check its source, you'll see that they're just pulling this out of a GitHub spot, right? And there's that GLB file. So you want to use your GLB file. It has to be stored somewhere that allows anonymous, right? So no authentication. It has to be HTTPS. It has to be CORS, support CORS, whatever the heck that is. It's like this cross-site scripting stuff. And so basically you can't just go shove this file in a SharePoint document library and use it. Boo! So what I found the easiest thing for you guys to do is I went out and I just have a SharePoint list called 3D something or another. I don't know, where is it at? Control, find, 3D. All right, it's laughing at me. All right, we'll go over here and find it this way. Data sources, 3D model. So then we'll edit the data. That'll take us to the SharePoint list. So the easiest way to use your thing is to have a SharePoint list, right? Just any SharePoint list that has attachments, which is any custom list. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say new. We're going to call this Video Chewy, Video Dog, just not to confuse us. I have some optional things. We're not worried about that. We're just going to add it as an attachment. This is the easiest way for you guys to get started. We're going to attach that GLB file we just did, like so, and say save. Okay, now that it is saved, you would need that as a data source in your app. So we added the 3D model SharePoint list to the data source. And now what I want to do is I'm going to throw a gallery on here. So gallery, vertical, pull it down a little bit. And so for this gallery, what I want you to set the items to is obviously the 3D model list. 3D model. Oh, right there. Okay. And so then in here, you can see all the things we should see. Video dog. There it is at the bottom. So we're going to select that record. I'm holding down the Alt key just to select it. And so if we were to go in here now, this for the source, what we can use is we can say we want gallery 3, that's the name of our gallery, dot selected, dot attachments. Now attachments, look, it tells us is returning a table. So we want the first attachment. Even though we only have one attachment, we still just have to say grab the first record. So we're going to use the first function. And then now it's going to say, all right, well, I have a display name, an ID, or an absolute URI or value. You want the value. So click on value. You can see that it spits out this A press thing, and that's a good sign. And pretty quickly, the first time I did this, it took a long time for it to render, but it came pretty quick. But now if we say play, there's Chewy. Look, we can zoom in. Whoa, too far. I can use my mouse to move it around. You know, so we've got our 3D model in here so we can visualize it. And this is a great first thing to go through because before you try to view it in your room, you need to make sure that you've got a 3D model that works. And if you can view the 3D model here and this is working, then that same source is going to work for the next control we're going to talk about. Now, the other thing to keep in mind was I wanted the ability to, so that works. Let's cut that out there real quick, Control X. And so I wanted to put my own, so Control or Windows V, and then go down here, right here. And so here's a URL I will throw in the description of the video. And so that is a publicly hosted version of it. So I put that on our public website in like a dumping spot, so that is showing you that you can get it from a source, right? Because that source is CORS compliant, and it is HTTPS, and it does not allow authentication. So that is pulling a previously done Chewy image in from that data source. So the other way that you can get it, right? Those are really the primary two ways. Either pull it in with a data source like from SharePoint attachments, or stick it out there, put it in somewhere public like so, right? So Azure Blob Storage might be a good place to put it. Oh, Control Z, let's paste back in our first gallery 3. Okay, so that's using the one out of our gallery. Okay, so we understand that one works. So now I'm gonna kind of shove it, make it real small and put it over here, but we wanna keep it here because as long as I see the little brown dot there, I know that I've got a valid image in this. And so now we want to talk about how to view in mixed reality, right? How to show that toy that we just made in the room. So that is going to be over here in mixed reality and view in MR. All this does is bring in a button. And so this button now, what we want to do is we got to set the source. And so I'm going to set the source to be that same source that we just used from our gallery. And because I got it over here, I know it works. Because one of the challenges of learning these mixed reality tools, right? I told you, I've been working on this stuff for a year. Like, I've been trying to make this video for a year. Whatever, don't talk. But one of the keys is like making this as easy to test, because I can't test mixed reality with my computer. I'm gonna have to push it to my phone to test it. And so in order to make it as easy as possible, things like this where I'm showing, hey, that is an image. So I know that this has got that same same record, so it's going to show that same file, so I know it's there, so I don't have to lose my mind and think, is the problem I gave it a bad file? Okay, so that's the source portion. Now, if you look at with this selected over here on the right, we've got things like object width, object height, and object depth. So you can define the size of these things. So that's one of the things I did in the SharePoint list. You might have saw over there, there's a length, a width, and a depth. So that when I upload one of my models, I can have it preset to the right sizes, right? Chewy's roughly 20-something inches tall. He's roughly 36 inches long. He's about a foot wide. So I could set those in the SharePoint piece. So when I pull in that image or that GLB file of Chewy, I've got those settings. Now, while you're still testing, playing, and learning though, what I want you to do is instead of hard coding this or tying it to a SharePoint record, is I just end up going over here and be like, all right, give me a text input, set this text input to be numbers, set its default to be 24, 25, whatever. And so then now if we go back over here, I can say, all right, view in MR, your object height property, so object height is going to be value, and then that text input I just added, text input 2.text. And so then that, whatever the number you type in there, will get past the control. So that way, when you're on your phone fiddling, you can keep changing things on your phone and have it update without having to go republish the app, right? Finding ways to fail fast and test fast is the key to figuring out how these things work. So you can repeat the same thing for depth and width. I'm not going to, but you could. Same thing over here, we have a unit of measurements, right? So if we go down here, it should be called units. And so right now it is set to meters. So if you wanted to make that a drop down, right, centimeters, feet, inches, meters, I can tell by looking at this control that it's just text. So I just go up here and change this to the word inches. And boom, now it'll do 25 inches, which is far cry from 25 meters, which was what I was trying to do a minute ago. Imagine a 25 meter tall Chewy. No, thank you. And if you want to make this easily controllable, let's just switch screens real quick. What I did over here, right? This drop down just has hard coded in there, inches, feet, centimeter, meters. So that's to set the items property for that. So if you pull that, control copy, and we go over here and just make one of those. So then now we go back up here and say, hey, your units is going to be, what is that? DD measure unit _1. dot selected dot value. Boom. And so now I can dynamically change the height and the inches. There you go. So now we can quickly play. That's how you can quickly jump through models, different sizes, to see the effects and learn how this control works. Now, as far as emitting things, right, the only thing that View and MR outputs is it captures, let's kind of shrink this gallery down. If we throw another gallery on here, actually, let's just do this first. So do a label. So the way that you get stuff out of View and MR is you type in the name of it. So it is View and MR 4, or View and MR, View in, geez, old Pete's learn to type. 4, there we go. Do a dot. And so if we kind of flip through these, the only interesting one in here is photos. Because when we're using View and MR, you can take a photo once you've placed the animal or shape or whatever into the space. So look, that outputs a table. So a label got me to figure out what it was, but it's a table. So let's just Control X that. Let's delete this label. So now we add that additional gallery. Pull this down here. Oh, it was kind of, and so we'll set the item to be that. Perfect. And now if we click here, so the image is going to use this item.image URI. So that's one of the pieces that come out. And then there is another one, MIME type, which will always be JPEGs. I don't really care. So let's just do this item dot, file size. And then down here, I guess we could just leave MIME type, right? I don't think there's anything else. This item, so MIME type, file size, image URI is selected. So MIME type. So there you go. So now if you did that, that would give you, if you take photos while you're in View and MR, that's how you see the data that came out of that. And then once you've got that image, right, the, what was it? This item.image URI, now we could use one of our tried and true processes for taking those and uploading it to SharePoint or sending it an email or whatever, right? We have the file. So now we use our other skills to get that file saved to a data source or sent in a report or whatever we want to do with it, right? So that's good, right? So now at this point, we know that we could publish this app, View and MR, and it would do our thing, right? We're not going to do that, right? 'Cause it's really hard for me to switch back over, but you've seen the demo. You've seen enough demos at this point. You know that all works. So that's how you get started with View and MR. And that's really about everything it can do that I can think of. So if we go over here, there is also View Shape in MR. So this one works exactly the same way with one exception. There is not a source, right? There is no source object here. So you can't change the shape, right? It just always places a cube. But look, it has a shape depth, height, and width. Remember, we placed against my door over there a 36 by 36 by 36 inch cube. And so we did that by setting these 3 to 36s and then changing the unit of measure to inches. Right? I guess we could have just set it all to 1 meter, right? Because 1 meter is almost 36 inches, whatever. But that's it. There's nothing different. Place a cube also emits photos only. So instead of View in MR4, we could say View Shape. In MR3, do a dot here, and photos is the only thing you're interested that's coming out of there. It has the same exact file metrics and information the other one does, so you can grab those images, save them to SharePoint or whatever you want to do with them. Okay, so View in MR and place a cube, almost exactly the same thing, just one lets you place any shape you want, the other does a cube. Okay, the last one here, so let's just do a new screen for this last one. The last one's a little bit harder, right? Like this one, we could spend all day on. So measure in MR makes a cute little button. And so measure in MR, the idea was, remember we used it to measure my door, and then we measured the thing in the floor and the box, right? All of that was using measure in MR, which was great. So the challenge I think with measure in MR though is, settings. So unit of measure. So once again, centimeters, feet, inches, meters. That should be very common to you by now. There's measurement types, right? So you can do area. So that was where we did the thing on the floor. We just made the box and then it gave us the area, right? The length, the widths, and the area. Freeform. So let us do a little bit crazier and measure whatever we want. And then volume, that was when we did like the ring box, right? Where we went up and down and around, and we got area, volume, lengths, widths, heights, depths, all those things. So there's different measurement types. So remember, in the app, what did we do? So I wanted to be able to toggle the buttons real easily, right? So I just made all of these things inputs. So there was that area, distance, freeform, volume, like that. I had this one, I think, hard-coded to be inches, because I only understand inches. And then things like box draw and shadow, right? So if we go over here and say items box draw, oh, no, sorry. If we go up here to box draw, so that one, I just set it to be the toggle control because box draw is true or false. So toggle let me switch that on and off. Shadows, true or false. So toggle let me set those on and off, right? So you have the ability to control all that. And by making all of those things inputs, it made my life a lot easier, once again, to fiddle and test because I could just change all the settings right there on my phone without having to, edit and republish. Now this one does also have another property the other ones didn't. And so that is way down here, items. And so the items, I passed it A, B, and C. So if you might have noticed when I was measuring, the first measurement was A, the second one was B, the third one was C, and then it just started calling the measurement 1, measurement 2, etc. So if you want fixed inputs, right? Like, so we talked about my friend down in Australia who's wanting to measure a fence. If she wanted to have one of these measured MR and it was always a fence, and she wanted to prompt her through the process and make, all right, so she could call the first one fence height, and then the next one fence length, and then the fence depth or gate, right? Like she could go through and set the items property to the different inputs that she wants. And so then that way it's going to prompt you in the app to capture those, right? So if you go back and watch the demo again, you'll see that the first thing it prompted me for was A. It didn't discriminate, it just said, give me A. So once you give it that table, and this table could come from a data source like SharePoint, Dataverse, SQL, whatever. You could also pass in things like, do we want to set the measurement type? So maybe when she measures a fence, she always wants it to do meters, but when she measures the handle, she wants it to be centimeters. So she could have the different items in the table and then specify the label that went with it, whether or not it should be a box, whether or not, what type of measurement it is. She could pass all of that in, so then that way she's getting and collecting the information, kind of prompting herself through collecting the right information. Okay? So that is the input side of this. The output, this one outputs two different things. One, measure in mr1.photos, outputs photos just the same way that we output photos for the other two controls. Nothing different, same thing. And you can take as many as you want, right? That's why it's spitting out as a table. But then it has measurement data. So measure in MR1 measurements, right? So control name.measurements, that is all the raw data that it's capturing. And so if I go down here, you can see that I just made labels in this gallery that showed all the things. So I was like, all right, what is your label? So that's where I'm seeing the A, the B, the C, the measurement 1. That's where I then said segments, and segments comes out as a table. So I'd use concat to turn the table into, the individual text. And so that's where you saw 36 by 36 by 36 or whatever I was measuring, right? You saw the different segments of that object that I was measuring. So that's segments. Then it had height and length. So I just threw them in there. Like, show me what the height and length is. Because I was trying to understand. This is all it's all about. Getting this information in front of yourself to understand. And so then finally down here, we had the volume and the area, and then the bounding depth and bounding width. So once again, I didn't know what those things exactly were. So I just put them on the screen. I did a bunch of measurements and saw, I was like, all right. So if I just do measure distances, none of those get returned. When we did the whole measure volume, all of those things were returned. So I kind of started to fiddle and figure it out, right? And that's my goal here, is to help you guys start to figure out how these controls work. Okay, so that's a lot, but now what you could do is save, publish your app, and go test, go play, go figure out what you don't know, but hopefully you've kind of set up the individual controls so you have different settings in there. Also keep in mind, right, there's a lot more here. So what else do you want to see? Leave me comments below. Like, where do I need to go deeper in? Is there interest here? The fact that it's free, I think, makes it a very interesting set of tools to check out. Also, you can go out to training.powerapps911.com, download this working app and all the other working apps that I do in these videos. But this might be a great one to do because I said I've got easily 40 hours in making all the hoops of this app work. Or maybe that's the next video. Maybe you guys want to see a video that explains how I'm previewing these. So my attachments here actually have both a GLB file and a JPEG file, and I'm distinguishing between the two because you can't preview a GLB, but you can preview a JPEG. So I'm using the two to kind of help drive the experience, but it took some fancy formulas. So tell me what you want to see. All right, so I think that wraps everything up. I know this video was long. I apologize. There was a lot here, though. I tried my best to make this short. So I've struggled for like a year to make this video. And I'm not rambling and making it longer. Remember, questions, comments below. And with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, me again. Before you go, click on the subscribe button, right? Join the list of 100,000 plus people that have subscribed already. Or if you need any help, right? Check us out at Power Apps 911. We do big projects, little projects. We do training. We do everything, and we can help you. Or if you want to see more videos, you probably do, then just click on the playlist above. Cool? Thanks, and have a great day.